Malelele, talofalava, blavinaka, and hello everyone, and welcome to another podcast episode of Pacific Empowerment with Akanesi Fusi. And as you can see, I have a guest here today. This is my first ever interview a guest on my Pacific Empowerment podcast, so I'm really excited to welcome her here and thanking her for wanting to be part of this episode and for wanting to share her story. As I talk about my personal story before, I want to encourage more people to come forward with their own story, because that's the only way we will be able to make a change in our culture, in our way of life in the Pacific. So without further ado, you must be excited to see what I will be saying this week after the uproar that was happening last week. It was crazy. I I didn't think that it will get to this level, but I think that's what happens when you speak the truth. People will come at you and try and silence you, exposing the truth out there for people to understand and to listen. Because I think the issue, especially church donation, Faikava, Doa, and the churchgoers, this is an ongoing issue that has been hush-hush for decades, so long. And we talk about it quietly, but we never bring it to light publicly until this week with my podcast. I never thought, the amount of uproar that I'll get and the backlash from our people, because I think people got my message incorrectly, because they thought that I'm putting down the Doa role in the Tongan culture. But what I was saying is, the behavior that they are doing in the Faikava is like prostitution, because as you can see, prostitution is not just sexual intercourse with someone, but prostitution is someone can just go and stand on the road and get paid for the entertainment of men. So that's what I meant when I said prostitution. But I'm right though, because if you see the witnesses that are coming out, that they are saying that these men try to touch them, that they are trying to sexual assault them and sexual harass them. So in a way, it is prostitution, I think.
But I think you're right. It's because it's a sensitive topic, because it's things that have been happening for generations. And I think you've ruffled a lot of feathers, as we can see with the uproar. But I think it's time that we bring things out into the light, because, if we want change, especially for the next generation of women and men, we need to start talking about all these things. And especially when we call ourselves Christians, children of God, we as Christians should hold ourselves at a different standard, at a higher standard to the world. And, God's word, if we actually read it, he is against oppressive. He doesn't say abuse, but oppressing people. And he says to speak for them, to speak out for those who can't speak. So, it's been an interesting week.
And it's especially treating women. I think the whole point of me bringing this out to light, because I don't like how our men treat women, like beneath them, like they are objects. And that's why I brought up this topic, because it is time to hold men accountable for the actions that they think that they're going to get away with for so long. And also, I think it's really important to educate both women and men about the law, because what they are doing, as you can see in the witness, they are doing it without consent, and that can get people jailed. I think there was a case of a Pacific boy in the Palm Scheme worker.
Yeah.
You heard that?
Yes.
Yeah, where I think he just touched the woman.
Think
he was just like this.
Yes.
Or touched the woman, and the women charged him
With sexual assault.
Yes, with sexual assault.
Yes.
And he was the woman was non-Pacific.
No.
Yes. So the non-Pacific people, the foreigners, overseas, they don't take this issue lightly. What the Thai government is doing in the Faikava can get them jailed if they get caught. And with me now bringing this to light, I think men have to start changing their ways and start acting appropriately, because now this issue needs to be taken seriously. Not only that the women are sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, and they think it's okay because they blame it on the women, but not also that, but I haven't touched deeply on the marriage topic because I don't have much experience, but I've just heard so many people talk about married women that are coming out now with their experience on broken marriages, But that is a story for another day. Maybe I can start interviewing women, who have these experiences, broken marriages from Faikava, so we can bring this issue to light, so we can make a change. Because no one is safe, not even the church people, as we can see in the witness. These are the people, the leaders that we thought that we're going to be safe with,
Yes.
and these young women, they weren't safe. So this is a really important topic to touch on. But today's topic, we're changing things up, and today's topic is another sensitive topic that we don't usually talk about in the Pacific, is domestic violence. Domestic violence, I think many women and men out there is experiencing domestic violence at home, other settings or nightclubs or any different places. But domestic violence is really common in our culture. And I'll just let my guest introduce herself and her work, because she is an expert on this, and I don't have much knowledge or expertise on this topic. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Bulavinaka, everybody. As you heard, Akanisi said, my name is Lizzie. My name is Lizzie Wong. I'm not Tongan, but I'm Fijian. I was born in Fiji. I grew up here in Australia. I'm a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 6. And the reason why I'm here today is because I'm here as a survivor of domestic violence, and also I work in the sector. So I'm here to talk about a little bit about my story, and also how, through my work experience, how it affects our community, and just to bring awareness.
Thank you so much, Lizzie, for being here today. You are my first guest for Pacific Empowerment Podcast, so I'm excited. So what inspired you to speak openly about your story today?
There was actually a lot of reasons. Like when I first started seeing your podcast, I thought, wow, that's really courageous. And then I started seeing the story about the towers and, all that. And I felt like, it made me angry and sad at the same time that we're in 2025 and women are still being objectified, especially in our community. I feel like we should have come a long way by now. But also that domestic violence is actually a big issue in our Pacifica, because if we look at the stats, Pacifica actually has a high number of domestic violence and also sexual abuse, but we don't talk about it because, like everything else, we talk about it, we spiritualize everything, put it under the carpet, don't talk about it, it's taboo. So I thought, this is, since Akanisi's opened the door for us to come, I thought this is a perfect opportunity for us to talk about it, because we can only bring change by bringing light into darkness.
I think that's right, because the reason why this issue is still going on until this day, because we are afraid to talk about it.
Yes.
And, as you can see here overseas, many Pacific Islanders have been living overseas for decades, but they still don't change. They're still living the Pacific way mindset of objectifying women and treating them badly. So now it's time to have a conversation and talk about this more. Okay, so now we can start with your personal story. When did you first realize that you were in an abusive relationship?
To be honest, because I'm talking, so just before I tell my story, I just want to put a disclaimer out there that I'm not here to shame anybody. And I'm not here because I'm holding on to the past or holding on to unforgiveness. Or, my story is not just my story, it's also my children's story. So I'm very mindful of how I tell my story. The main reason why I tell it is to bring awareness. And also at the end of the day, it is my story. So it's my perspective. So I got married quite young. I was, and to be honest, I didn't even know I was in an abusive relationship because back then we didn't talk about it. It was like normal. So I really didn't put a name to it or label to it, but I kept thinking it was my fault. It had to, I had to change. Like there was something wrong with me that this was happening, because I felt like, oh, if only if I wasn't so insecure, if I wasn't so, different, because I'm not full Fijian, or maybe if I just did this that way, if I looked like that or acted like this or liked this, then things would be better. But I just kept internalizing it. Like I looked, but I didn't even know I was in an abusive relationship, even though I knew it was wrong because I didn't feel good. I was hurt, but I didn't know how to verbalize it or articulate it because this we're talking like over 20 years ago. So back then there wasn't a lot of talk about it. Yeah. So I didn't really know I was in an abusive relationship. Yeah. It wasn't until I came out of it in like probably about 5-6 years later, then I realized that was abuse. And now I'm listening to other voices, I'm reading, I'm, surrounding myself with different people. Then I realized, wow, that was abuse.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What forms of abuse did you experience? Like emotional, physical, financial?
So, with my personal experience, I actually still remember the very first incident. I had just had my first child, and he was 3 months old. And we had a disagreement. We were actually living with my parents at the time, because I had a difficult pregnancy, and it actually started with a pull of the hair and a shove. That's how it started. But then with every incident, and then there was the apology, and I just got angry. I didn't know what to do. So then I thought, okay, it wasn't going to happen again. But actually the following incident was a week after that. And then with every incident, it escalated. It became worse and worse and worse. So I experienced most of the different types of abuse that there is. So, a lot of times as Pacific Islanders, I think we always just focus on the incident, what actually happened on the day. But, and we think it's just physical. But actually, abuse is there's different
Verbal.
types of abuse. There's actually verbal, like calling someone name, criticizing them. There's financial, withholding money, misusing the money, using all the money, controlling all that. There's spiritual, not allowing somebody to practice their faith. There's also sexualizing someone with the words, even making sexual comments about their body, or touching somebody without their consent. And I have to say this, just because someone is afraid to say no doesn't mean they've given consent. And there's also coercive control, which is a new thing now, which is intimidating, like gaslighting. Like, for example, if I say, oh, the sky is blue, and then Nessie says, no, it's actually red. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay, yeah, it's red. So, it's like distorting someone else's reality. Like you said something and she said, but you said that. No, I didn't say that. See, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? There's all different types of abuse. So when we make it to simplify it, abuse is when it's a behavior that makes someone else feels unsafe, or makes someone else feels not worthy or valued or heard. It's about power and control. That's what abuse is.
Control.
Yeah.
That's right. When you're mentioning the sexual abuse, the touching, I think what our people need to realize in regards to the Doa situation, where a man thinks it's okay to just touch and stuff, that's still sexual assault. Even though if it's just touching like this, it's still called sexual assault here in Australia and other foreign countries. So that's something to be mindful of for men, because you can still get charged for these minor assault.
Especially if the other party is not comfortable or hasn't consented. And because they haven't actually, because they're afraid to say no, it doesn't mean it's consent. We have to remember that,
That's right. Were there any cultural or community pressures that made it harder for you to leave?
Yes, that's a good question. So cultural was because we're people based on faith, so we don't believe, we always say God doesn't believe in divorce, and he doesn't. I mean, marriage is a sanctity that's ordained by God, anointed by God as well. But the thing, I felt pressure because our church members were planted at the church at the time. We were very active as well, especially the father of my children. So I felt a lot of pressure because I felt like I couldn't say anything, because when I actually did, it was like, just pray about it. Pray for him. And you know how to act. When he gets angry, just be quiet, God will change him. And then I felt, so as the years went on, I kept hearing that kind of response. I stopped talking to people. I just kept quiet. I think I only spoke to 2 people. And also when people who did know about the abuse would make fun of me. If there was a group of women planning to go out, one particular woman said, oh, no, not her, because she'll get a hiding when she gets home. It forced me to withdraw even more and to keep more quiet because you didn't talk about it, because you were then shamed by your own women, by your own people. And then, they spiritualize everything. So when they would say, pray about it, I felt then, okay, then it's my fault. Then I should be praying about something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not praying enough. Maybe I'm not praying the right way. Maybe I'm not serving God properly. So I just withdraw even more. And I never spoke out to anybody. I kept it all to myself because I didn't know where to go. I didn't feel safe. So that was the cultural thing. The community thing is, it's so easy for people to say, just leave. But when you think about where you're going to go, at the end of my marriage, I had 4 children and I was pregnant to my 5th child. Where was I going to go? Who was going to take me in, first of all? It's so easy to say, but where the women are going to go? Are you going to take them in with their 5 kids and, house them, accommodate them until they get back on their feet? Are you going to pay for the schooling? Are you going to pay for all of that? It's not that easy. So a lot of the times, you stayed because, one, you loved your husband. You want to make your marriage work. You want to keep your family together. 2, where were you going to go? Who were you going to go to? Especially if you didn't know where to go or you didn't have a safe space to go to. There was another thing, lack of resources. Like if your partner was the one that controlled all the money, and because some women don't even have their own bank accounts. Some women don't have never worked. Thank God that I worked. I had my own money, but still I was in that mindset that this was my family and I'm about to, if I walk away, what's going to happen? I'm breaking up my family. And then when I did finally have the courage to leave, which I left a few times and then came back, but then the final time I left, there was women that said things like, oh, she's so stupid. Like, why did she leave? Look at her children are grown now. Then she does this. She's, disrupting her family. He's such a good man. Like, what's wrong with her? So a lot of times all those things, because of the pressure, the words, you end up staying, staying longer than you should, or you just end up staying because you have nothing else, where else to go.
And I think it's still happening today, as you can see these women that are coming out with their DOA experience. They've been holding on to this trauma for so long without someone to talk to them about. And I think that's the key thing here, is the reason why we bring these things to light is to help us heal and help the ones that are currently going through it right now. Thank you so much for sharing that.
It's okay.
Yeah. How did the abuse affect your self-esteem, relationships, and your daily life?
Whoa, that's a deep question. Well, so that's the thing, a lot of the times we just focus on the incident, but we don't really think about the effects on the person.
Yeah.
So when I left, finally, to be honest, it took me over 10 years to get over things because it affected my mental health. I actually was diagnosed with clinical depression. I had panic attacks, and also I was broken. I had nightmares for about 10 to 15 years at night, and they were so vivid. The nightmares were so vivid that it seemed real. That sometimes they were so real that I couldn't sleep for 3 days because I was too scared to close my eyes because I didn't want to dream. I didn't have the nightmares. It wasn't just me, it's my children as well. I don't regret getting married, but I regret bringing my children because they were innocent. They weren't asked. And what they witnessed and what they saw also affected them. It manifested in other ways, anger management, self-sabotaging, things like that, bad behavior. A lot of the times we look at angry people and we think, oh, they're just a bad young man, or that's a bad... But anger is actually, manifestation of fear. So they went through their own thing, and it took us... after we left, I think I had to deal with the manifestation of the trauma in my life and also my children's life. So it took well over, 10 years, over 10 years, nearly 15 years.
Wow.
And it's changed me. Like, I'm not the same person. Like, I get panic attacks in cars. I don't drive because of that, So there's little things that still affect my life to this day from the trauma, and still affects my children as well.
Yeah, I think that's what men don't understand is the effect, the impact that it has
impact.
on mentally.
Yes.
And not just the physically will go away, but the mental trauma, that's why I talk about, talking about your mental health in therapists for most of Pacific Island people, to talk about these issues and, try and heal. As we can see in the witness that happened in 2023, and she said that she's still carrying the same trauma into this day. And that is what men needs to understand.
Yes.
Or as we say, abusers, because there are women abusers as well,
Yes.
is that the effect, the ripple effect of it, and it will pass down to your children as well, because your children grew up in seeing all of this.
That's
and
right.
it will affect their mental health as well.
Yes. And that's a good point that you brought about children. Like, we, now I think we're reaping the consequences of generational stuff.
That's right.
Because when we look at our prisons, right? Pacific Island, even if we just look at New South Wales, has a high representation in our prisons. And we can't blame the kids. We have to ask why. Why is that? Because, one thing I've learned is that abusers are not born abusers. God didn't create imperfect people. We were born into an imperfect world. But abusers become abusers it's a learned behavior. It's either they witnessed it in their home or they were victims of it as children. That's how they were taught to handle conflict, disagreement, anger, by hitting, by, controlling, no one was born, we learned that.
No.
Yeah. So we need to talk about these things, because if we want a different generation, then we need to learn to have the conversation. Like, when you're angry, there's other ways to handle it. Like, even the Bible says anger is not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not bad to be angry. It's what you do in your anger. That's what the Bible says. It's how you act.
The thing with the Pacific Island, back in the days, you can hear someone beating up their wife or their husband, but if they don't get involved, they just leave them. That is something that needs to change, especially in the Pacific regions where it's normalized to beat up your wife
Because we see it as a private matter. Yes, it's true. It's a family matter. It's a private matter between husband and wife. But I mean, if someone is getting harmed, we can't turn our backs, I mean, we shouldn't turn back, because in Fiji alone this year in Easter, the Easter weekend, 3 women were killed. Alone in the 3 Easter weekend. 3 women were killed by their husbands or their partners. That's a lot for 3 women in one weekend in Fiji. And that's because, and the neighbors then started going, oh, but where was the neighbors? Where was this? And there was a church, one of the women who got killed, the church was just across the road. People started blaming the church. But they didn't know, they didn't hear, but apparently the woman was screaming for help.
Wow.
But nobody responded. So that's the question we've got to ask ourselves. How many more lives need to be taken? How many more of our daughters need to be killed? Because that's what it is, killed. Or how many more of our daughters need to be traumatized? Then we wonder why they're not good moms. We wonder why they're absent, why they're going and drinking and partying, why our sons are acting this way. This, we have to peel back the layers and have the real, find out what is the root.
Yeah, that is right. That's right. Was there a particular moment or a turning point when you decided you had to break free?
Yes, I think that the morning I decided to leave, I finally realized it was either if I wanted to live or die, literally. I still remember the moment like it was yesterday, but that was the moment I realized it's now or never. If I don't leave now, then I'll just stay. But I had to leave, At that point of my life, I was just existing. I got up, I went to work, I came home. I was miserable. My spirit was broken. I didn't even know who I was anymore. It was like I constantly walking on eggshells. So that day I decided it's now. And then that was when I left and I never turned back. I never looked back. And that was 22 years ago.
Jenny. And did you have someone to go? How did you find the safe place, and who did you look for these?
I'm actually quite blessed because I have amazing family. Like I have siblings. So I have only one brother, biological brother. I actually went to his office. I guess I can say I am blessed because I went to my brother and my brother took us in. And my siblings, like my sisters, they just came around and that was it. They didn't ask questions. They didn't want to know how, all these things. They just let me do what I needed to do. And we actually stayed with my brother until I gave birth to my 5th child. And I think he was around 6-7 months when we finally got our own place.
There are women who are currently going through it, both women and men victims that are currently going through it. So it's really important, if you are currently going through it, to seek help from families and friends, and also for our families and friends to understand and not to mock, but to help these victims, because domestic abuse is not something to be laughed about, especially when people have lost their lives.
Yes. Yeah, like with my work, because I support Fijian women and Pacific Island women with the organization that I run. So a lot of the women feel safe talking to me because I'm not Itoke Fijian, so I don't look Fijian, So they feel safe talking to me. And a lot of the times where women in our Pacifica, we don't talk is because everybody knows each other. Secondly, I think with our Pacifica people, we don't know what the word confidential means, and another thing is, I think what we really need to learn, if we do want to make a change and someone comes and confides in you, we need to see it as an honor. That person trusts me enough to talk to me about their very, very dark, intimate parts of their life. That does not give us the right to go and tell other people. Even a lot of the times as Pacifica, we use as, I'm telling you so you can pray about it. That's no. We need to learn to protect each other. And that's how we build trust, by being protect, because that's not your story to tell. Let her tell the story. But then also when someone, being in an abusive relationship, all the control's been taken off you. So when someone comes to you for help, that's not your job to tell them what to do. We need to give them back the control and the power. You sometimes just listen. Because you know what? A lot of times we know people can't do anything to help us. We know that already. They can't fix our problem. But what we need to do is just listen. And it's okay to say, you know what? Can you say, I don't know what to say right now. I don't know what to do. But what about if I find somebody who can?
Sure.
It's okay to do that. Or even just to say, just to be quiet. Listen to listen. Sometimes we listen to respond.
But listen to understand.
Yeah. But the Bible says slow to speak, quick to listen. And a lot of the times, a lot of the women and the men that are going through things, they just need someone to listen and one to believe them.
Yeah.
Believe their story. It might sound outlandish. You might think, this can't be real. But how do you know?
Yeah.
Just listen, that's all. And let them tell you, what is it that they need you to do for them.
And I think especially with the men laughing about it, as you can see publicly, they don't take this seriously. So it's really important if someone confides in you that you don't go and tell, because if they hear about it, it will be bad for the wife or the one who comes and talk to you. It'll be worse for them. I know it's very sensitive and it's really hard for people to hear about. But it's a conversation that needs to be had in order for a change to be done. How did faith, culture, or community play a role in your healing, positively or negatively?
I'll start with faith. So faith was, so my children, I had to, we relocated to a whole different suburb. And I actually went to a whole different church. Like I left the island church and I went to more predominantly Caucasian church and multicultural. And I found that's where I got a lot of help because they were actually resourced. So I attended counseling, Christian counseling. I attended divorce class, and I also did soul tie counseling, breaking the soul ties. So, and I really surrounded myself with women. Like a lot of times when we're going through things, we surround ourselves with people that are going through the same thing. I think that's not a good thing. It's good to surround yourself with women or men that are a little bit ahead of you, because then it challenges you to become, So I surrounded myself with married women that were living prosperous, good lives. Because
advice.
every time I went to their house or I came alongside, I was going, I'm going to have that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be like that. So that was a big thing for me. And what I found when I went to that church, I'll tell you a story. So my kids and I would get picked up by the church bus. And the guy who was the coordinator in the church bus, he was Cook Islander. He would look at my yard and see that my lawn was quite grown, because I didn't have, lawnmower. I was I had 5 kids.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't say anything to me. And then one early Saturday morning, we were in a townhouse. I was sleeping. I could hear the lawnmower.
Oh.
I looked down and he was cutting our grass.
Oh.
And he cut back and front. He cleaned it up and then he left. Didn't come and knock and go, hey, guess what? I cleaned it. Made a big thing out of it. And some mornings I would wake up and there's boxes of food outside our door. I didn't know who it was from. And I really, in that church, in that place, I found the love of God. That's when I discovered the love of God, because they didn't ask me, where was your husband? What happened? They just loved me and they loved my children, and they just showed it. And it was through those actions that connected me back to the love of God. And I felt like I found healing there too, because I was just loved. And I think that was a big thing for me. And till this day, we're still friends.
And I think that's why it's really important the people you hang around with,
Yeah.
the community. As I mentioned in my previous episodes, the people you hang around with, the 4 or 5 people, is who you will become. So if you hang out with people, with a community who's living a better life than your current situation, then that's where you need to seek help from.
Yeah.
In the Pacific, most of them are turning a blind eye on domestic abuse and sexual abuse. And I think this is something that the church in the Pacific should start looking at. How can you help? Not just spiritually, not just praying. Praying alone isn't enough. Faith and work goes
Yes.
together.
Yes.
And just to see how can the members of the church find comfort in the church about these things. If this is not your experience, how can you bring people or create a group in the church that will help
Right.
the church members that are going through abuse domestically or sexual abuse? Feel free to go and seek help. But thank you for sharing that. Looking back, what was the hardest part of your recovery?
I guess the hardest part is accepting my role in it, because I don't just blame the other person. We all have a role to play. And if I was to be totally honest, and this is what I try and speak to the younger women, is that, what, it's great to fall in love. But, a lot of the times, if we're really honest, we saw red flags before we even got married. There was little things that he did or said that we felt like, that's not right. But we thought, no, I'm in love. He'll change. I can change him. No. As younger women, we need to learn that if something goes against your moral compass or makes you feel uncomfortable or makes you feel unsafe, that is your, the world calls it intuition. We as children of God call it the Holy Spirit warning you, run, go, don't stay. We can't change anybody. So that was the biggest part, is taking responsibility for my part that I played. And the hardest thing as well was seeing how it affected them, and how it manifested in their lives, that they're still dealing with till this day, that is the hardest part for me, is my children, because they were innocent and I brought them into it.
Yeah, it's such a red flag if you hear men talking down women, and you can tell how they treat women just from seeing how they treat their mom,
Yes.
how they speak about other women.
Yes.
That's when you can see red flags. Like I said, that's why I mentioned getting a therapist for church and for the Pacific community, because these young men and women needs to heal from their trauma. If there's anything that they went through when they were young, they need to heal before they get into a relationship or get married. In that way, they'll have a better relationship and a last long relationship, because we can see, divorces happens because of domestic violence and sexual abuse.
I think a lot of it stems from the home that we come from.
Yeah.
Like for me, I guess I was already broken before I got married. So my self-esteem and my, self-worth was quite low. And because of the background, the home I came from, I was looking for another way out. I was looking for love at, somewhere else. So the first person who said hello to me was like, oh,
Yeah.
So it's very important, as like now I'm a parent of adult children. I only have one daughter. And, I really tried when she was growing up to instill in her to be confident in who she was. I didn't want to control her, allowed her to dress the way she wanted to dress, be who she wanted to be, and I never allowed her brothers, because, in the island way, because she was the fourth, the brothers could discipline her. Well, I never allowed that in my home. And I said to my sons, I don't allow that is because if you don't touch her and her father, and if another man comes and touches, she'll go, no, 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 no. My brothers don't even touch me, and neither does my father. Who are you? She'll have that confidence in her, So I tried to bring her up in that way so that she knows that
That's right.
no one has a right to touch her or belittle her, So, it goes back to the way we raise our daughters and our sons.
Yeah, I think that's why it's really important. I think for me personally to come out like this and, be courageous and fight these men, because I want to encourage our women to speak up. Because there's only so much a man can do to you, if you have the strength and the courage to face them and speak up, then you'll be able to get away from the abuse or go against them. As we mentioned before, our recordings is the reason why I was able to do these podcasts and face these men, because I have a very supportive husband. And my husband doesn't drink kava. He doesn't go fight kava. He doesn't drink alcohol. And he used to fight kava before when he was single, but then when he got married, that's when he stopped. And I think most of the men out there, if you want to get married, then you have to prepare yourself to stay married. But if you still want to go fight kava, then maybe marriage is not right for you if you still want to continue on the life that you did when you were single. So I'm so grateful to have a good husband to support me in everything I do, especially at this time when every man came to attack me online, and my husband was just very supportive, and he's very understanding. And I think it's really important for our women to find understanding and good husband, because sometimes they think good husbands are boring, but then they will find out when they get married to a abusive husband, then they won't like it.
This is a conversation I have with my sons, because I have 4 sons, and my sons they always think I'm a feminist, but I'm not. And one thing I always say, women don't want to be strong. We don't want to take the lead, because that's not what we were created to do, But sometimes we're forced to step up and take the lead and be strong and be, aggressive and be loud and be vocal, because we don't have anywhere to fall back on. But like you said with your husband, because you have that support system, you have that supportive, husband, you're able to step up and you're able to be also soft. So there's a saying that I've read, that a woman glows different when she's
That's
loved
right. That's right.
And also for husbands, if you want healthy children, then love their mother right.
That's right. What does healing look like for you today?
I think healing is always going to be a journey. Like it hasn't stopped. Like I don't believe in that quote that says time heals all wounds. I think that's not true. It's a lie from the pit of hell. You learn to that what you've gone through doesn't define you as much, doesn't affect you as much. You learn to live with it, but you never really go back to who you were. Like for other, I like to use the example as, when you get a cup and you throw it, you smash it on the ground, and then you try and put that porcelain cup together. There's always going to be gaps because some pieces you'll never find because it's so small, like there's always going to be, and that's a life that's been through trauma. You will never go back to who you were. But, because we are people of faith and God does heal. And I thank God, like I give credit to God for the healing that I've come this far because of his grace, I've been able to come. So for me, healing looks like it's a day at a time sometimes because some life keeps going. You still continue to have losses and you still have things going on. So it's a day at a time, and sometimes it's stepping back, sometimes it's moving forward, sometimes it's sitting still, sometimes it's being quiet.
What led you to work at a domestic violence center after your own experience?
Okay. So my opportunity, actually, it was an accidental God opportunity. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So my background is corporate. I've always worked in the corporate world, but then after my experience, and I did a lot of volunteering and some courses, I actually wanted to get into community, but I couldn't because I didn't have experience, and I was in my 40s then, so I was like a bit. But then a friend of mine who manages a DV service rang me on a Friday morning, and she said, "Lizzie, are you looking for work?" I go, "No, I've got work." She goes, "I can offer you work, but it's only 3 days a week." And the money is not that good, and I was earning big money and it was full time, and I'm thinking, I go, she goes, "You need to get back to me by 5 o'clock this afternoon."
Wow.
I'm like, "What?" Anyway, I went to work. I rang my daughter and I told my daughter, and my daughter was like, "Mom, go for it. It's an opportunity that doesn't come around that often." So I rang my friend back and I said, "Yes, I'm going to take it." She goes, "Okay, you need to start on Monday." And I'm like, "What?" So I had to resign from my job, turned up on Monday, and I went to sign my contract, and the HR lady goes, "Can you work full time?" So I just know it was from God because, it was originally 3. And the reason why I wanted to work in the DV sector was because I wanted to be that woman I needed 20 years ago. I just thought, the way of giving back, because I've seen so many women come alongside of me, is to be that woman that I needed. So that's why I started working in the DV sector. I started in the local court supporting women during AVO days. And then I got seconded to a federal contract, which was funded by the federal government in the family court. So we started off that program as a pilot, and now it's federally funded. So I've been working for 9 years in the sector.
Wow.
And then from that, I started the organization, the Fijian Diaspora Women's Alliance, which I support women going through affected by domestic violence.
And that organization is here in Sydney?
Yes, we're based in Liverpool.
Oh, right.
And we're in Sydney. We're now 5 years old. So we get our referrals from the Southwest DV CASs, from police. So I do support women, and we do support men as well, because men go through things as well. Yeah.
And this is for the Fijian community?
Well, predominantly it's for the Fijian community, but we don't. Anyone who reaches out to us, like we've supported Ukrainian woman, English woman, like whoever reaches out, and they usually reach out in our Facebook page or our Instagram page. So we support them through whatever needs they have.
Okay, that's good. Can you describe some of the challenges survivors face when they first reach out for help?
Okay. Some of the challenges, I guess, a lot, especially because we're doing Pacific Island women, is that they're scared to tell their story because they're scared of the backlash, from our community. They're afraid because for example, we support probably 80% of our clients that we support for the Fiji Diaspora, they don't have, permanent residence here. So a lot of the people, they get threatened by, well, you don't have your papers here, you'll be deported. But I always say to them, is he the Prime Minister of Australia or the Immigration Minister?
Is he the police?
Yeah. And they'll go, no. And I say, exactly. Just because you're not your status is unclear doesn't mean anybody has the right to harm you. So a lot of times that's the hindrance. Also because, it's so taboo in our culture. Like, we don't want to air your dirty linen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of these men that are the abusers, they're well known in the community, they're well liked in the community.
Yeah.
Everybody loves them. Like, if you tell the story, they'll go, no way, he's a nice man. He's a good man. So not being believed is another thing. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's a really important issue that you touched there, because I think so many of our leaders and people who always appear good behavior outside publicly, but then they're a whole different person, back home with their families. And I think that's because they don't heal. That's why I always talk about healing and going therapists is for these men to talk about the issues, because the reason why they are like that is something that happened to them.
That's right.
And they grew up watching or seeing when they were little. And when you raised there the immigration issue, did you see the comments from one of the guy who said that these young women at the DOA, at the Whaikawa, won't be able to speak up because they are overstayers, most of them, and they won't be able to call the police. I mean, they're afraid that they'll get sent back to Tonga. Yes. And it's not an excuse for these men to take advantage of these women. I think that's why I'm speaking up, because these issues is considered normal for the men to think that they can take advantage of these women just because they are overstayer. But what would you advise for someone who doesn't have a legal visa here in Australia that goes through domestic violence or abuse? What would be your advice for them?
Okay. I think we need to take away the visa thing and just remember this is a human being.
Yeah.
Okay. That's first and foremost. We have to remember this is a human being, someone's daughter, someone's child, So first of all, we need to treat each other with respect. It's not about women's rights or women's equality. It's about a human being's right to be safe. That's first and foremost. If you are going through that, there is support. Seek legal advice. You can actually go to legal aid, or you can reach out to someone like myself. You can also go and make a police report. You don't have to give your name, if you don't want to, but document it. Put it somewhere, like either with a professional, so a social worker, a police, or even a psychologist, a counselor, or even a minister, a church minister that you trust. But document it, because if you keep it quiet, and it's up to you. We're not forcing anybody to do anything they're not comfortable with. But we're letting you know that you have a right to be safe, you have a right to be valued, and you have the right to say no. And you have the right to speak out against whoever's doing something to you. Visa has nothing to do with it. Yeah. And, they'll use that against you to say you'll get deported. No, you won't get deported. You need to get legal advice. They will advise you. Even if you need help with your visa, always start with getting legal advice. Instead of going directly to the people, we have a lot of people in our community that give false advice. Go directly to the people, because they're there to help. Go onto the website, the Australian Department of Home Affairs website. There's actually a list of places you can go for free legal advice in regards to your visa, in regards to domestic violence, in regards to anything, like even the cost of your visas. There is help, but it's better that you reach out before it's too late. Yeah, don't wait till your visa's expired. Don't wait till something dramatic has happened. Do it now, and there's always support, but but
speak
go
out, talk to someone.
Go directly to the people, because I know it's scary. I understand that. And a lot of times we're scared, but it's better than keeping it, and then you're dying inside and you're
Yeah.
struggling by yourself.
Yeah, it's like shame only lives in silence. Once you start speaking out about these things, you
Yes.
don't feel shameful anymore.
Yes.
And also that's why I'm providing my platform as a safe space for women to message me with their stories. If you are going through domestic violence at the moment and you don't know who to talk to, you can provide Lizzie's contact after the podcast for you to contact, or you can message me on my
Yes.
page. My page is always open for women and men who are going through domestic and
Yes.
sexual abuse to message me, and then I'll direct you to right people that will be able to help you get out of that situation. It's always important that you reach out to someone while it's still small, so don't be
Yes.
afraid to speak out. What about the Pacific regions? What can small islands like Fiji, Tonga, how can they deal with this?
You know what I'm actually finding in Fiji? We've actually got a lot of women crisis center. We've got a lot of movement, going on now. But we're still behind because we're a patriarchal society. We're a patriarchal, we were brought up that the man is the head, the woman, that's how we were brought up. This is normal, coming from survivor's point of view. Is I think the church, we need to, and as a community, we need to change the way we see domestic violence. That one, it's not a private matter and it's not a personal matter, that it's actually a human being matter. So we need to change the way we see it. And we also need to change, I think, the conversation, that we need to be more open about it. And we need to now stand up and say, you know what, we want a better future for our children and our grandchildren. So let's talk about it openly. If we look at the spiritual sense, the enemy is working overtime. And the way he works is to break families, because families are ordained by God, So we need to go back to that and really literally take God's word for it. And the men, we need to be who God called us to be. The women, I think we need to do that. Teach our next generation differently, talk about things differently. And the church should also accept help from the community. Like, just because the church doesn't have all the answers or the resources doesn't mean you fail. Where the church lacks, we can go to the community service, because that's what they're there for. Just like if someone's sick, we'll go to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
So if there's abuse and there's trauma, we need to go to the mental health workers. We need to go to the community workers and talk, have an open dialogue and say, how can we, the community and the church, work together to support our people?
Thank you for that. That's really true. What are the most common barriers that keep women from leaving abusive relationships, especially in Fiji or in the Pacific culture?
I think one of the common barriers is the resource, the financial resource, especially if the woman has multiple children. How is she going to take care of her family, her children, Does she have somewhere to go? Because one thing we like, even in a country like Australia, is women's shelters, women's refuges. We don't have a lot. A lot of it's always at capacity. I know, because when I'm always ringing around, sometimes it takes me days to find accommodation for a client, and the woman ends up staying in that relationship, or they end up sleeping in their cars, or they end up going couch surfing, so imagine back in the islands where the resources are even more limited, and it's so small. So one is the resource. I think it's the shame, because we are all taught to make it work, stay silent, don't break up the family. You want your children to grow up with mom and dad. No one gets married to have a broken marriage. No woman just wakes up one day and thinks, oh, I'm just going to leave my husband today. No, there's things that have happened along the way that has brought you to that decision. So, but a lot of times we stay because of the stigma, because of the backlash, because we will be looked upon as a woman who doesn't listen, who's disobedient, doesn't honor the husband. So a lot of times we stay. Those are the two main things, I think, is the pressure because of our faith in our community, and also the resource.
Do you see patterns or cultural factors unique to Fiji or the Pacific Islands that make this issue different compared to other parts of the world?
I think our faith background is unique, makes it, because we're very good at picking out the verses in the Bible that suits the behavior that covers, or justifies our
So true.
behavior. So that's, like, for example, a lot of we constantly hear women submit to your husbands. But then further down it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ would love the church, that he would lay down his life for her. That doesn't mean you're a weak man, but that means that that you want to give your best to her. Like Christ, it actually says like Christ lays down his body, his life for the church. But we don't get taught that as young women or as young men. We always hear husbands submit. So I think that's the unique thing from the Pacifica, is that we use the faith to justify what we do. I work a lot with other migrant. It's the same taboo. The domestic violence, sexual abuse, it's a taboo topic. You don't talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's why I got a lot of backlash, for example, about raising these issues, because in our community, we don't talk about it. I think, for example, in Tongan, everyone went off about the word prostitution because we have our own taboo against a brother or a sister. We don't watch TV together. We don't go together to nightclubs and stuff. It's just the respect. And I think this is a barrier that stops people from coming out, because we still want to protect this tradition, this culture of trying to keep the family or respect going. I think especially with the reputation of the church, like you can't speak out because it hurts the reputation. But I think it comes down to, does this really help our community, or does it really hurt our community when we stay silent, when we know the issue is there, we choose to stay silent just because of the culture.
Yeah. So the change starts with us. But I think also our lines are so meshed that we bring culture and kingdom culture and
faith together. So we're mixing them together.
And that's where I think there's a bit of a, where all this comes from. Whereas if we just stick to the kingdom culture, which is God's culture, his instructions are very clear, very, very clear. Like, he detests violence. He says, speak up against the oppressed,
Yeah.
That's God's word. And he actually does talk about women. There's stories and stories in the Bible of women being abused. Like, if we go through it, so God actually speaks up against it. So if we got to choose whether it's kingdom culture or our culture.
Man-made culture.
Yeah, man-made culture. But our culture is not bad because it's there to protect us. It's our identity. But then we've got to decide, I guess, discernment, the Holy Spirit, decide
which one goes above.
Yes.
Because sometimes they try to keep the culture and the tradition over the word of God.
That's right.
So I think that's something that we need to look at, because we are a Christian regions. Most of the Pacific, faith is what we are known for. We grew up in church. We grew up in faith. And I think that's something that we need to revisit. Is our culture going against the word of God?
That's right.
Or is it supporting the word of God? I think that's what we need to look at. What message would you give to someone currently trapped in an abusive relationship?
Wow, that's deep. I don't like to, it's not a one size fits all, because we're all different. We all handle things differently. We all react to things differently. So I would say one is, first, take care of yourself. Make sure that you are taken care of. And also, I would say, find a trusted person that you can talk to, that you trust, or seek professional help if you don't have anybody in your world that you trust, or anybody that in your community. So find a professional. Like, you can go and get counseling. You can actually go to your doctor if you're in Australia, in Sydney, and you can ask for a mental health plan. And your doctor can actually refer you, and you can get up to, I think it is 20 free sessions, which is covered by the government. So, and that's the person you can talk to if you don't have a trusted person in your community. Start finding out information. Like, don't just live on a whim, but if you're planning to live, plan it. Like, for example, start documenting things. Start by getting all your legal documents in place. Even if you pack an exit back, bag ready. Like, for example, your documents, your spare charger, some jewelry, some spare clothes, things like that. And either keep it in your car or keep it, with a close friend or at work, so that if something does happen and you need to leave, you don't need to go back. You can just leave. So sometimes you have no other choice but to live in that moment. That's different. But, just start finding out information, talking to people, but at the same time, keep yourself safe. Don't put yourself in a situation where will create more, will put you, compromise your safety. So I would suggest you do that. And just also, if get out of the house and do something, to keep your mind distracted. Because sometimes I know for myself, when I'm alone a lot, my mind gets bigger, my thoughts become bigger than what it is. Pick up the phone and call someone, like do things to continue to sow into yourself, whether it's praying, whether it's walking, whether it's reading, but keep on building on yourself whilst you're still there. But also find out information, and get a trusted friend. Yeah.
That's really important. You mentioned documenting a few times. For those who don't understand it, what does documenting mean and what does it look like for someone who's currently going through it?
Okay. A lot of the times, a lot of the women, why we don't live is because it sounds like our story is crazy. Nobody will believe us, and you don't want to go make a police report because you think, oh, I can't remember everything. So you can just start documenting things. Like, for example, in New South Wales, there's an app. It's called Empower You. So if you just download it, it's free. It's actually been put together by the police. It'll look like just any app on your phone. So if your husband or your partner it won't stand out. And you can just start doing, like, for example, if something happened, you can put it on that app. An incident happened today, he pulled my hair, or he called me this, or he smashed my phone, or he, withdrew all our money, or he went and I found out he was having an affair. Those things, document things, because we can't always remember everything. You might have bruises. Take pictures and upload it into that app, or you can use a diary. Whatever works for you, start writing things down, especially if you're planning to leave, and especially if you have children, because documenting things is your evidence to go to the police to get help. You don't have to have an AVO. I want as well people to know, you think I have to have an AVO. No, you can actually get still help as long as you have evidence for yourself. Even if you don't document, that's not important, but it's to help you remember things, so that if you do need legal advice, if you've got children and they may be, you might have to go to court for children's custody, or if you have property, things like that. Your partner may take you to court. Don't assume they won't. Because a lot of women, we think, oh, he's not going to bother. Trust me, he will. Because what happens is, once you've left and they've lost that immediate control, they use the system to control you. So they take you to court. They will make up lies about you. They'll, spread rumors about you. So this is the way to cover yourself, so that you can go to the police and say, this is what happened, and I have my documentation. I have my proof, photos, writing things down. Yeah. And also in that app, you can have people there, so that if something happens, like, for example, if something happens to me and you're my trusted friend that I've added you, I can send you a code word. Once you get that code word, you know what to do. So you can call the police on my behalf.
Wow.
Or you can come and pick me up.
Yeah.
So that's
really
the good
interesting.
things. Yeah. So you're not alone. Even if you're not, like, I'm not a technical person, I diarize. Keep a diary.
Write down in the journal
write
the
it.
experience
Yes.
while it's still
It's
fresh
still
in your
fresh.
mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, when you're going through trauma, you don't always remember everything.
That's right.
Yeah. And a lot of people will say, why are you remembering it now? Because, human beings, we suppress things so that we can survive. So that's why it's important to document things.
Thank you. Thank you for that really important advice for our people. How can families and communities better support survivors?
You know what? I actually spoke at a panel the other day, a few months ago, and a mother asked me that. And because I came from a place of like a worker, being sensitive, and it's hard when you're a family. Like I know it was hard for my siblings and my mom to see me go through it, and they couldn't do anything. But what they did was enough. They just believed me. They never questioned me. They didn't tell me what to do. They just was just there. They were just there. And if whatever I needed to do to heal, they did it with me. But I went through like a stage because, the thing is when your marriage or your relationship breaks down, it's like you're mourning a death. But the only difference is that person is still alive. Because you're mourning what you dreamt, that marriage, that relationship, the dream, the goal. You're mourning that. And we're not robots. We can't just switch off and reboot. We're not laptops, computers, we're human beings. We're flesh and blood. We remember things. We feel things. So you're going to always remember. And some days when you leave, you're going to think back and go, did I do the right thing? What if, could have, should have, I should have stayed long. So you start to question yourself, all those things. That's why it's important to surround yourself with people that will your family just needs to be there. So to allow you to talk through it, to allow you to grieve the marriage, to allow you to grieve your husband, your ex-husband, ex-wife, all those things. Just be there. Just be there. We never know what to do. There's no right and wrong. But sometimes all you need is validation. It's just say, yeah, okay, I believe you. Yeah, but I don't know what to do.
What do you say about because in our culture, some of our families are supporting the men for abusing their partners, well, in our culture, they say, you have to teach them a lesson. The only way to teach the woman the lesson is to beat them up. So you'll be surprised how so many people, Christians, are supporting this view.
Yes.
So what do you say about these church members?
I've experienced that too, because in our Fijian culture, like, yeah, just give her a slap, to keep her quiet. Teach her, yeah. Oh, she's too much, Like in Fijian, we have a word "vieve level." That means, you're too proud, the woman. So for me, I think it goes back to how the young man was raised, And I'm not blaming parents, but I think what we need to do is, I don't know, there's no perfect answer, I guess, but what we need to go back is, what are we teaching our young people?
That's right.
How are we raising our sons? I have 4 sons, and my prayer is always, like, they're not perfect, not by any means, but they know how I feel about how they treat women. When my sons started to get married, my 2 older ones, I said to them, that verse that I spoke about earlier is, you need to love your wife as Christ loved the church, that you need to lay down your life for her. That doesn't mean you don't have arguments. That doesn't mean you won't have disagreements. That doesn't mean hard times won't come, but it's how you're going to handle it. And I think, and I always tell my sons, a confident man is not a man that walks around and go, hey, look at me, or is loud or is bossy. A confident man is actually someone who steps back and allows his wife to shine.
Yeah.
Is okay with that. That's a confident man. That's a
Very
strong
secured man.
Secure man.
Yes.
You don't need to be a strong man by hitting. That actually shows weakness.
That's right.
That actually shows that you're insecure. Yeah. That actually shows that. Because if you are, and that goes for us women too, if you're confident in yourself, you don't need to walk in and announce yourself. You just walk in because you're meant to be there. And I think we need to change the narrative. It starts with us, the older generation. Start teaching our sons differently. Start talking differently. Teaching our daughters how to value themselves. Self-esteem, healthy relationship. What does that look like in the island culture? Because in the Palangi culture, it's very different to the island culture. So we have to have those conversations, not just with our sons, but also with our daughters.
Yeah.
Because if our daughters go out there and face that, We need to tell her how to handle that.
How to stand up against abuse. Yeah.
And how to draw the line, to have boundaries.
That's right.
To say, no, you know what? I'm not going to allow
stay
that.
here.
Yeah. No, my father didn't do that to me. My mom never had, no.
Yeah.
So we also need to teach our daughters and our sons, what a healthy relationship looks like, and and how to deal with anger and conflict. I think that's the biggest thing we need to teach.
Yeah.
Because we're just get angry punch, Yeah.
That's right.
No, there's different ways. And just because someone disagree with you doesn't mean they hate you, and doesn't mean that you're wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. But I think our sons need to learn how to be conversational, sit down and talk, But, this will be works of generations to come, because we need to change a lot of mindsets. And I think that's a big thing you've been talking about as well.
Mindset.
Mindsets.
Mental health.
Yeah.
That's a really important advice for the community. What's next for you in your journey of advocacy and healing?
Okay. For advocacy, I'm actually, continue to fight the fight. My biggest, wish is that we don't see that when women like us speak out for women, that it's not about a feminist movement. It's not about being equal, but it's about a human being's right. That's what I want to change in our community, that it's not women wanting to be men. No, we don't want to be men. Trust us, But we just want to be able to be safe in our homes. We want to be safe in our workplaces, in our church, in our schools. We want to be honored as your daughters, as your wives, valued, That's the thing in advocacy. And I'm hoping and praying that more women will come alongside and, work with us in regards to speaking out. And also, we want some of our men to step up and come alongside of us, like be the hero and be the change, be the one that stands up and go, no, this is enough now. Back when I was younger, and I'm nearly 60 now, it was very rare to see a single parent home. Now it's common in our Pacifica, whereas we never grew up with that. My mom, it was a very rare thing, whereas now it's very common. And because a lot of boys are being brought up by their moms cannot teach a boy to be a father or to be a man. We need our fathers back in our homes. We need our men to be the men. We need our men that God called you to be the head of the house, the priesthood of the house, that you speak life and teach, our families. We need that. So part of the advocacy is to bring men to come and, work alongside with us and stand up with us and be that hero, that person that speaks. And also we're hoping for funding, because we get a few grants here and there, but a lot of it comes out of our own pockets. And especially like when we're supporting women that are transitioning, are leaving the home and going into temporary housing or temporary accommodation. So when a woman leaves home and go into a shelter, that's not the end of it. Sometimes the shelter can only house them for 4 days. Then they have to move again, And sometimes that process can take anything from 3 to 12 months. And imagine if you have 4 kids and you're moving every 4 days or every 2 weeks that's a lot. And then finally they get their home and they have nothing. So we're hoping to get some sort of funding or sponsorship that when a mom goes into their new home, we'll actually be able to give them, starter kits like kitchenware, towels, pillows, things like that. A lot of that comes out of our own pocket, So we're hoping for more funding, to come around side of us and to continue the conversation in safe spaces where we come to a generation where this is something that is not common anymore. Yeah,
that's really true. I think you touch on the word feminism, because I receive messages from men saying that I'm a feminist, that I'm trying to divide the men and the women. And I think speaking out on these issues, it doesn't mean we are attacking you as a man. We want to resolve these issues. We want our women to be safe. You wouldn't want your daughter, your granddaughter to go through what these victims went through in domestic and sexual abuse. We just want safety. We want our voice heard, and we want the men who are doing this to please take accountable for your actions and seek help. Seek help from other men, that you think that you can trust. If you don't want to seek help from a woman, other men. I think it's really important in our Pacific group to make use of the Faikava instead of, doing all these disgusting behaviors. Maybe use the Faikava as a good support group for men who are going through domestic violence. Because some of these men, they went through it and they haven't healed from it.
Yes.
So maybe in the Faikava, instead of doing all these things, talk about how can we become a better husband? How can we solve these issues that we grew up with? How can we heal from our generational trauma, our childhood trauma? These are important conversations to be had for the future of our children and for our soul. If we claim we are the Christians that we are, we need to become better Christian, because there is a God. If you believe in God, there is a God, and we all answer to Him.
Yes. Because we always, from my church, we always talk, our pastor always talks about God is a generational God, When he passes the anointings, it doesn't just stop at that one person, but like Abraham, it goes on to his son, then, know. So we need to stop thinking just about ourselves, but the legacy that we leave behind. Our sons and our daughters, our grandchildren, what are we leaving behind? And we have to think, do we want our sons and our children to be in a safe home?
That's right.
Why are our children running away from home? Because it's not safe at home. Like one time I asked my youngest son, why don't you talk, how come it's hard for you? Because, the Pacifica young men, we have a high number in suicide between the age of 15 to 25. Why is that? And when I was reading a report, I actually asked my son, why do young men not talk about? And he said to me, because when we cry, don't cry like a girl. Be strong. So we don't have, we can't speak out because it's seen as weakness. So we need to change things like that. The words that we speak, like it's biblical. The words of our mouth has power. Like, for example, as a survivor, the bruises will go, but you always remember what someone said to you. Always.
Yeah, the mental impact of it, it's I think it's worse than the physical.
It is. Yeah. It is.
We hope that men, instead of getting defensive and trying to justify, maybe listen to understand before, and not just to listen to respond and come at us. But this is something for all of us to learn.
All of us.
Yes. Both men and women, and the church, the community. This is an important issue that we need to talk about more.
Yes.
And just to finish off our conversation today, thank you so much, Lizzie, for your time. Is there a quote, scripture, or life motto that keeps you going and keeps you strong?
Yes. I love the story of Job because, Job had everything and then he lost everything in one day. In one day, he lost his children, his wealth, everything. And during that time, and, God, the enemy actually asked God's permission to deal with Job, but he said, you can do everything, but not his life. Yeah. But then when God restored everything,
doubled.
It was more than what he had before. And the word of God, I think it's in Job 42, it says, your latter days will be greater than your beginning. So I always hold on to that verse because it's my latter days will be greater than what, so it's not how we started, it's how we finish. And that is one of my favorite verse that I hold on to when I'm feeling down or when I'm, questioning myself. The promise of God to Job is that your latter days will be better than your, be greater than your beginning. And he also promised that to Hagar. We all know Hagar's story. She was the concubine, and she had the son. And, God promised her as well that the glory of your former house will be greater and peace will be in that house. And that, for me as a mom, I hold on to that the glory of my, later house will have peace, will be greater. So those are the two of my favorite Bible verses I hold on to. And my favorite quotes, like I was telling you to the break, I love quotes. I actually collect them. But my favorite one is from Maya Angelou. Each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it, possibly, and without claiming it, she stands for all women.
I love that. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah. So each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, she stands for all women.
I love it. I
Yes.
love that. I love that
I
quote.
love that quote because it has a ripple effect. Like, you know, how we were talking, how you started this conversation.
Yeah.
It was just one voice. And because you stood up and you said something, all these other women are reaching out.
Coming forward.
So, you know, it just takes one voice, one woman to stand up and say, hey, this is not right. And that gives permission for our sisters who are listening to say, me too. You know, like you spoke about the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. You know, it's about, and it has a ripple effect because then you're creating a space for other women to come in and speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for that quote.
Oh,
That's
you're
a really
welcome.
good quote. And I think last questions to end our conversation today.
Yeah.
Really, really, insightful conversation. So much to learn from this. How can listeners support survivors or get involved in the fight against domestic violence?
By volunteering, or even like, for example, Akanisi's podcast, by sharing what she shares on her podcast, by getting it out there. You know, other organizations, like we have a lot of Pacifica organizations that are doing this kind of work. Come alongside, you know, volunteer. You know, everybody has something they can give, even if it's just your time or even your talent, you know. So volunteer, share. If you don't want to volunteer, share the work that we're doing. Get the word out there. Let people know. Put the information out there, you know. That I think that's a great way to come alongside. And if someone does come to you, you know, and discloses something like we mentioned earlier, see that as an honor and protect her or him, and, you know, walk alongside and reach out to Akanisi or myself or other, you know, women that are doing things out there. And let's just stop gatekeeping.
That's right.
You know, I mean, a lot of the times in our community, we hold on to our own information for ourselves and just whoever we want. But let's stop, because we look at all these other communities, they've built community centers, they've built all these resources for their community, but we still haven't got it.
That's right.
But that's why we need to come together and look at the big picture for the next generation and generations to come. Because when we're gone, we hope that our granddaughters are not going to have this conversation.
That's right. That's right.
You know, that our grandsons will be men, will be godly men and good men. So, you know, we need to come together. I think that's the best way, is support each other. Yeah, no competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's right. I think because I think that's why I started this podcast, you know, because there's hardly anyone in our community that can stand up and talk about these interesting, you know, very taboo conversation that people think about, but they're afraid of verbalizing it. And I don't blame them, because if you see the backlash that I get and the bullying online because I raise these issues, that's why so many of our people are afraid to come out. And I think my message is just to the men out there, this is not an attack on you. This is to help you become a better person. And for all of you who are trying to bully me online, you're just making it worse for the victims, for those who are going through the issues that we're talking about right now, because then those victims won't be able to come out, you know, because of the backlash, the bullying. I mean, I'm glad that God gave me the strength to stand against these bullies and tell them, you won't bully me to be silenced. You know, I'm not the kind of woman to be silenced easily, and I'm grateful to God for fighting with me, alongside me, because it's been a very interesting week. I see it as a spiritual battle. It's like the devil is trying to find any corner to try and shut this down, so people won't be able to open up their mind and see that what has been normalized for decades is not right. That's not what Christian people should be doing. So I want to thank you so much for coming into my podcast. Thank you for sharing your story. It's really hard for our women to share their story. So this is, I think, a starting point with you for other victims, for other survivors to come forward and tell their story. And Pacific Empowerment is a platform, is safe for both men and women to share their story. If you want to share your story, reach out to me. And how can people reach you if they're here in Australia or if they are in Fiji to seek help, if they're going through the same issue with domestic violence, how can they reach you?
Okay. We have a Facebook page. We're called the Fiji Diaspora Women's Alliance. You can either message me there or I will leave my details with Akanisi. She can pass that on to you. So you can, and on that page it has our number, has our email, so you can contact us there. We also have an Instagram page that you can contact us. So yeah, feel free. And just to, end like with if other women come aboard, just to put out there that people don't come out and tell their story for sympathy, and people don't come out and tell their story because they're holding on to the past or they're attacking somebody. We have to talk about our stories because that's what will bring change and also bring understanding of how it affects that person, the ripple effect of it. So this is important. And thank you for doing this, for allowing safe spaces. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy for you. It's not easy for anyone, but it's a start.
Yeah.
And the more voices, we're bringing things out into the light so that God can shine his light on it. And when he does, that's when healing happens.
Thank you, Lizzie, for that. And if you want to get in touch with Lizzie, message me. If you don't know the context of Lizzie, and I'll direct you to her. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope this is a conversation starter for the men, at home, in Faikawa settings, in group conversation, in church. I think this will start conversations. And I encourage women to come forward with your story. Feel free to share it with me if you can't come out publicly. That's why I'm trying to stand up for our women and fight these men by myself. But I hope this will encourage more conversation. And I think when you said this is not sharing for sympathy, it also helps with healing. When you talk about your story out in the open, the devil don't have anything else to attack you with, because there's a saying that shame lives in silence. And when something happens to you and you try to keep it quiet, the devil will use it against you to try and keep you miserable,
Remind you of
the past. It won't help you, but when you start speaking out, that's when your healing starts. That's when you start to talk about it, because once you speak out about it, it's nothing.
Nobody can hold it against you.
Yeah, nobody can hold it against you, not even the devil. And you are able to heal and move forward and improve your life and become a better wife, a better husband, a better dad, a better mom. So thank you so much for listening to our Pacific Empowerment conversation. Thank you, Lizzie. This is just the beginning, of discussing the Faikawa. I didn't know how huge the issue of the Faikawa is until this week. So I think we will keep the conversation going about Faikawa. I think we need to have lawyers, Pacific lawyers and Pacific police members, if you would like to come on board, so we can talk about the legal side of things and educate our people about, domestic violence and sexual assault, sexual abuse. It's important to educate our people about that. But we will keep the Faikawa conversation going. If you have a story to tell about Faikawa, if you want to discuss this more often, please reach out, because this is a conversation that needs to be held to help our men and the marriages that have been broken from this. We need to do better as leader of the family for the Pacific men and the church and the community as well. So thank you so much for listening. Until the next podcast next week. Malo.
Malo.